welcome to this next quick start video. This one is going to be about hit points and characters dying and getting injuries and healing from hit point damage and all kinds of stuff like that. I was originally planning to cover the stuff in the video about dangerous situations, but I was going to go over weapons and stuff before the actual rules, and I think I'm going to probably maybe split those into different videos. I'll see, and you'll see when they come out. But I realized that, like, before I can cover weapons, attacks, people getting hurt, all that stuff, I have to cover how much HP people have in Eureka. Otherwise, none of that means anything. So, I already talked about composure in another video. A composure being like sort of an emotional HP. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about the real HP, as you can see on screen right now. So there are two types of HP in Eureka: superficial HP and penetrative HP. Superficial HP is for superficial damage done to the surface of the body, generally stuff like bruises, shallower cuts, mostly things that will generally heal on their own over time without like professional medical attention required. Getting punched or kicked would generally take away superficial HP, but there are some exceptions I'll talk about either in this video or a dangerous situations video, but that is the gist of superficial HP. Penetrative HP is for things that do like serious lasting damage to the human body. Hits that break bones, damage organs, cut through flesh, etc., etc. Think of like bullets, knives, getting hit with a baseball bat, a car crash, stuff like that. You don't roll for HP in Eureka. All humans and humanoid characters in Eureka have a maximum of 5 HP for each type of HP. So 5 superficial HP, 5 penetrative HP, and that's it. It's always 5. There are a couple of traits that can increase or decrease HP, but for the most part, like all characters will have the same 5 of both types of HP. To go along with superficial and penetrative HP, there's also superficial and penetrative damage, which reduces the respective type of HP. I basically already covered that a few seconds ago. A punch would usually do superficial damage. Getting stabbed with a knife would usually do penetrative damage. And when we get to like lists of weapon stats and stuff later on, it'll like say what weapons do penetrative damage and what weapons do superficial damage. When characters get down to 0 superficial HP, they do not die. A lot of bad stuff can still happen from going to 0 superficial HP, but I'll cover that later in this video. If they continue taking superficial damage with no superficial HP remaining to lose, the superficial damage will start taking away their penetrative HP. When they're at 0 penetrative HP, they just die. That is death. There's no death saving throw or anything like that. If they take enough penetrative damage to go to 0 penetrative HP, they are dead. I mentioned in the composure video also that when composure gets to 0, losing more composure starts to take away HP. The type of HP that composure loss would take away when there's no more composure to lose is superficial HP. And then if there's no more superficial HP, the composure loss would take away penetrative HP. So they can technically die from that if they take 17 composure damage in a really short span of time, which is very unlikely, but it's something to probably be aware of, that composure can eat into HP. When a character is reduced to 1 superficial HP, 0 superficial HP, and or they continue to take additional damage of any type while they're at 0 superficial HP, they have to make an injury roll. Injury rolls use the athletics skill. It's a regular 2d6 roll with athletics added. If they make a full success, nothing bad happens. If they make a partial success, they are now superficially injured, which, as you see in the picture there, it is a -2 to all rolls. And when they get superficially injured, you roll a 1d6. If that lands on a 6, they get a grievous wound. If they fail the injury roll, they get superficially incapacitated, and you also roll 1d6. On a 6, they get a grievous wound, but on a 1, they go unconscious. Everything I just said, if they're reduced to 1 penetrative HP, the same stuff applies, except replace the word superficial with penetrative. and none of those statuses are mutually exclusive. And if they have an injury, either type of injury, they get -2 to all rolls except wealth rolls. And you know how skill checks are made with rolling 2d6s and adding the modifier? If a character has an incapacitation status, either superficial or penetrative, they get 1 less d6 to use for those rolls. Though they can add d6s back in by using the Eureka focus ability. The injury and incapacitation statuses are removed when the equivalent type of HP is fully restored. So if they have superficial injury or superficial incapacitation or both, and their health points are restored back to 5, then the superficial injury and superficial incapacitation are gone. But that would not get rid of a penetrative injury. For that, they would have to restore penetrative HP. So if a character rolls a 1 after failing an injury roll, like I mentioned, or they have both the superficial incapacitation and the penetrative incapacitation statuses at the same time, they will go unconscious. An unconscious character is unconscious, and they can't do anything because they're unconscious. They will stay unconscious until either the end of the current scene or 1 tick on the ticking clock has passed. Which I guess I'll probably have to do a ticking clock quick start video at some point. In really short, the ticking clock is a game mechanic in Eureka that is kind of like time points. It helps you track time, how much time is passing in the game world, and how much time the investigators have left if there is some kind of thing that they're trying to be faster than or stop before it happens, stuff like that. And so time is measured in quote-unquote ticks on the ticking clock, which do not really translate to an actual regular unit of time. 1 tick passing in one scene might be a different length of actual time than 1 tick passing in another scene. So I also mentioned quote-unquote grievous wounds earlier. A grievous wound is any kind of long-lasting, compromising wound on the body. This would be like broken bones, severed limbs, eyes put out, or just swollen shut, that kind of stuff. It's something that prevents someone from using a certain body part fully. On the character sheet, there's a place where you can mark down your character's grievous wounds if they have any, and that'll be showing on screen right now. If the status that caused the grievous wound is superficial, then it's a temporary grievous wound. It'll also go away when superficial HP goes back to 5. If it was a penetrative injury that caused the grievous wound, that is a permanent grievous wound, and it'll be like a lifelong problem for the character that has it. Also, if they already have a temporary superficial grievous wound, and they get another superficial grievous wound to the same body part before it's healed, that temporary grievous wound will become permanent. Eureka doesn't have mechanically adjudicated specific body part hit locations in combat, or in just dangerous situations when people can get hurt. So where and what that grievous wound ends up being is kind of left up to description and the fiction and the gameplay. Whatever makes sense, like a baseball bat is not going to cut off somebody's hand, stuff like that. There are specific stat penalties for specific grievous wounds to different parts of the body, which will be showing on screen about now. These are not all the possible grievous wounds that can happen. They're just the ones that we've listed and given specific stats for. So, one last thing about grievous wounds. Grievous wounds to the same body part have basically the same penalties regardless of the exact description of the wound. So like a severed arm and a broken arm both have the same stat penalties as each other. They're both disabled arms, like a grievous wound to the arm. There would of course be like slight differences to the character's ability to do stuff depending on whether their arm is cut off or their arm is just broken. Like they could still maybe hold something that's very lightweight in a broken arm, but that'll just be left up to like common sense. We expect you to understand the difference without having to make a specific rule for it in that case. Alright, so that was all about losing HP, and like this next part of the video is going to be about regaining HP. So under normal circumstances, all characters will recover 1 point of superficial HP at the beginning of each day. That's, their bruises, their cuts, they'll just heal on their own. Penetrative HP, however, has to be restored through medical attention. The medicine skill is used for this. It can restore either type of HP, but not both at the same time. So a medicine skill check to restore superficial HP does not restore any penetrative HP. That would be a separate roll, like separate dice roll, but would use the same skill. A full success would restore 2 points, a partial success restores 1 point, and a failure restores 0 points. A failure will not do any additional damage. Unlike comfort rolls for restoring composure, characters actually can do medicine skill checks on themselves to restore HP, but that will be done at a -2 penalty to the roll. Also, for a medicine roll to work, there has to be at least a little bit of description of what the character is doing to heal the other character. It also has to make sense. Like, it can't just be Bob heals Tom. It's not magic, unless it is, but that's a different video. If they're trying to heal HP, they would have to, actually put a bandage on the cut or something along those lines. Also, if they're trying to heal penetrative HP, they will have to have actual appropriate tools and equipment to actually make a difference. Like, if someone's been cut up and lost penetrative HP from being stabbed and cut with a knife, a normal person cannot just make a medicine check on that to restore HP without having bandages, gauze, some stitches they can sew it up, at least something to clean it with, something like that. And it'll depend on what the exact wound is in the world of the game, but the general idea is the medicine roll is not magical. Last thing about the basic medicine rolls, they can't just keep making medicine rolls over and over until the target's HP is full. Once a medicine roll has been done on a character for a particular type of HP, they have to take damage in that type of HP before another medicine roll can be used to restore that HP again. And no, they cannot just punch each other to take a small amount of damage and then keep doing medicine rolls. There's a specific rule that it does not work if anyone tries to do that. So penetrative HP has to be restored by medical attention, but medical attention does not always have to be provided by other investigators. Investigators can get professional medical treatment at hospitals, clinics, and if they know where to look, unlicensed or back alley, quote-unquote, doctors. All three of those things, like hospitals, clinics, and back alley doctors, can do medicine rolls like normal, usually with a pretty high skill modifier, but hospitals and back alley doctors can also do long-term care. When a character is in long-term care, they're staying at the hospital overnight for a number of days. You roll a d6 for each day that they're staying in the hospital, and on a 4, 5, or a 6, they regain 1 point of both types of HP, in addition to the superficial HP that they recover each day normally. None of this is free, though. They will have to roll wealth skill checks for it, and depending on the result, they may take financial stress or go into medical debt, which is bad. So an investigator in long-term care probably cannot go snooping around like they were, unless the place they were investigating is the hospital itself. They can still be visited in the hospital, of course, and they might be able to do some research or snooping online from a laptop or something, but for the most part they're out of commission and cannot really help with the party. So what does a player do when their investigator can't continue investigating because they're out of commission or they're dead? There's two options, and they kind of depend on how far along the party was in the investigation. In future versions of the rulebook, we're considering making a much harder line for that, but in this version of the rulebook that I'm using, which is the July 11th version, there's not a hard line where this cutoff happens. If it's in the first couple sessions, the player of a dead or out of commission character might either get a new investigator, and that new investigator joins the party, but the new character does not get to keep any of the old character's investigation points or Eureka points or something like that. If the party is farther along in the investigation, then instead the player of the dead or out of commission character joins the narrator and becomes a secondary game master. The narrator will privately fill them in on the facts that they need to know to be a secondary game master. They will read the adventure module so they know the mystery and they know the clues and the NPCs and stuff. And from then on until the end of that adventure, they will help describe rooms, play NPCs, and stuff like that, which can be very helpful for a game master, especially to have someone being an assistant like that. It also means that scenes where two NPCs are there and might talk to each other are a lot more engaging, because it's not one person trying to do two voices for two characters who are talking to each other. And also, like, they can take notes, they can look up rules without the game pausing, they can help with all kinds of things. But, okay, I should probably also mention that when I say adventure or mystery or module in this context, I'm not talking about an epic multi-year campaign. Eureka campaigns are more like anthologies of multiple unrelated mysteries/adventures that last between like 1 and 12 sessions, which 12 sessions would be like an extreme amount. So this doesn't mean that the player whose character died is sitting out for like years of real-world time. They'll be sitting out for a few sessions. You're also encouraged to swap out GMs in between mysteries anyway, so that everybody gets a turn in the GM seat and everybody gets a turn in the player seat. So, like, that'll be good practice for when it's their turn to game master. And I think that is about it for like the HP and the wounds and stuff in Eureka. In the character creation quick start video, I mentioned that characters can start with grievous wounds, and I didn't go over exactly what a grievous wound is, and that's because I did it in this video. So if you get to that step in character creation where, like, optionally a character can start with a grievous wound, or however many grievous wounds you want them to start with, then the character health and status and grievous wound section are what you will look for information about that. These are the grievous wounds that I've talked about in this video. So thank you for watching this. You can download the Eureka rulebook from our itch.io page for free, or pay us. We'd appreciate it if you paid us. You find it if you just Google Eureka Investigative Urban Fantasy. YouTube won't let us put links in the descriptions yet. You can also get a more regularly updated version by subscribing to our Patreon, the Agency of Narrative Intrigue and Mystery Patreon. With a $5 subscription on that, you will get a new and updated version of the rulebook every month as we continue to work on it. It is, of course, in beta, as I've mentioned in I think almost every Quickstarter video. And yeah, we would really appreciate the funding to pay our bills and stuff. We do not make a lot of money as a small, independent, indie studio with just a few people making games as big and involved as this. Thank you for watching. It would help if you liked the video and shared Eureka with your friends, even if you don't give us a cent. Play Eureka. It's fun, and we really want people playing it. We made it to be good and fun and be played. So thank you. Goodbye.